Before we get started with today's show, I'm here to tell you about Brez Coffee Company, made by gamers for gamers right here on the Gulf Coast in Pensacola, Florida. Do you like light or medium roast? Then try the Necro Medium, Holy Grail Light, or Stamina Boost. Or if you're like me and prefer darker roast, try the Critical Dark or the Coup Slayer Mocha Roast. But what if you can't pick just one? Then try one of their specialty sample packs, perfect for an all-night gaming, or in the case of my fellow filmmakers, an all-night editing session. Forget about all the crappy coffee you've been buying at the grocery store and head on over to brezcoffeeco.com. Use the promo code DDE at checkout to get 10% off your order. Have you ever thought to yourself after listening to this podcast, why didn't Derek ask this question? Or why didn't he ask that question? I know I certainly have. Well, you get the chance to do that if you sign up for my Patreon at patreon.com/DDiamondPodcast. You get the chance to ask guests of the show a question. If you're a fan of the top 5 list, you get the chance to vote on what the topic will be. You also get early access to episodes, accessibility to my film scripts, and so much more. And you can do so by heading over to patreon.com/DDiamondPodcast. And we want to thank our patrons, Tim Spivey, Donna Diamond, and Shannon Williams. Thanks so much for your continued contributions. And now, on with the show. Welcome to the Derek Diamond Experience podcast, where every week I take a look inside the world of film and television with those who have lived it and experienced it. I am your host, Derek Diamond, and coming up on today's show is a really fun and really enlightening conversation with actor, voiceover artist, and fellow podcaster, Katie Chonacas. And this episode is a prime example of what I love about podcasting, that no matter what you really plan to talk about, things can go in a very different direction, in a very unexpected direction. But for the most part, that turns out to be a good thing. And that was definitely the case in this situation. You know, I got to hear her take on acting and how she prepares for roles, and really does a deep dive into what goes into acting. And it was in a way that I had never really heard before. So I was just sucked into what she was talking about. And even, going back and listening through the interview, I found myself still being captivated by the words that she said. So I hope you all enjoy it just as much as I did. This is one of, as I said, the most enlightening and fun conversations that I've had on the show in quite some time. So we're going to get right to it. Without further ado, here is my conversation with Katie Chonacas. Welcome back to the Derek Diamond Experience podcast, and this week I have the honor of speaking with actress Katie Chonacas. Katie, how are you?
Great. Thank you so much for having me, Derek. I'm so excited to be here. Thank you. I'm doing well.
Absolutely. And for those who are watching the video version, Katie and I were talking before we started. I'm geeking out over your home setup that you have with all the, the foam paneling, the nice microphone, headphones, everything. That's awesome.
Thank you. I am so proud of myself. Like, literally, this is my third studio because I have one in LA, I have one in New York. And during the pandemic, I was able to come home and visit my family in my childhood home. And whoever thought, like, when I was writing my little girl dreams from being a teenager, preteen, and like, literally, like, this is my home studio from where I grew up as a child. And with technology nowadays, I was able to get these amazing headphones. They're noise canceling because I have, I'm an empath. I'm very sensitive. I have misophonia. We could talk about more about that. But so I have, these are Bossing. They're Bluetooth wireless, but then they're also great for my voiceovers, and the sound quality is amazing on them. I just got them. And then the sound paneling was so amazing on Amazon to get like Boss sound paneling. And I totally invested during the pandemic into myself. Hopefully more people did that as well with the more reflection we had. And I bossed up my mic from a Rode NT1 to the other condenser mic for animation, for promo, podcasting, music, poetry. The Shure SM7B is amazing. The one you have. For animation, a condenser, a full body mic is more important. It's better actually. So I bossed up and I got the TLM 103. So I'm on it right now, the TLM 103. And it's so cool because it has a carrying case, so I can take it with me to New York, LA, everywhere I go. But the cool thing is I can leave this setup just like this when I leave, because I'll always, God willing, come home and visit my mom and dad and just be able to plop down my mic and put on the laptop and start recording. So thank you. I appreciate that. I was so proud of myself during the pandemic to create this. I mean, who would have thought, right?
I feel like after that explanation, you should just take over the podcast.
Oh no, I have mine. I have my podcast. This is all you.
Oh, so yeah, tell me about your podcast.
Sure. Next week is our season finale, season 3. During the pandemic, I went headstrong. I made it seasons, like a TV show, to give myself a break to relax. So as of next week, I'll be relaxing for a few months. And then I'll be going to season 4, and it's going to be, I decided to curate a women empowerment series. So that's for season 4. Season 3 had a focus for, World Poetry Month, and focused on poets and the language. And that's kind of like the theme of season 3, because I launched my first poetry book called The Lover's Fairy Tale. And so I kind of just like to make them all connect, but it's about arts and business and ethics and morals and values, and anything that you want to know about. I'm here for you to answer those questions. Why? Again, I was a preteen, 12 years old, sitting on my floor, writing emotional poetry, feeling so frustrated, wanting someone to talk to and connect with. And I remember I was observing people who were my elders and seeing how they kind of like lost their spark, that fire inside. And I knew I had to protect it, and it was very sacred. And I had to remember to remember. So I journaled a lot. And I said I would always pay it forward and remember to be there for, the younger generations to come, to share my over 2 decades of experience of not only life and traveling, but in entertainment. So paying it forward, being a ripple effect, impacting other people is like my number one goal.
Well, that's the great thing about podcasting is, a lot of people use podcasts purely for entertainment purposes. And I think they're great for that. But something that I think we're seeing more, at least what I've been seeing the last, especially year or so after COVID hit with podcasting, is using it almost as an outlet to tell their story, as a way to, teach people lessons and maybe what they should do, and that they can learn from other people's past experiences. So I think that's a phenomenal way to use your podcast. That's great. What's it called?
It's called She's All Over the Place Podcast.
Awesome.
And what you said is 1000% amazing. And I love to hear that. And to hear collectively more of that, that's the impact and direction we want to go for life, for health, for prosperity, for enjoyment of being humans on this planet. I mean, it's why we're here, to experience as much as possible and to be mindful and to share and connect with one another. So it's so beautiful. I love that. And it's a transfer of energy and holding space to tell stories. It's important. So no matter what the story is, just to have the space to get it out. And then you're moving that energy, because energy is energy in motion. We get that energy out, then we have new energy to come in, and we can share and elaborate on new stories.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. No, that's fantastic. So kind of backtracking a little bit, you had mentioned you're currently in your childhood home, you have your studio built and everything, but what was it in the beginning that made you want to pursue a career in acting? Was it a specific movie that you saw as a kid? Was it something that you decided when you were a little older? Tell me about what set you on that journey to where you are now.
I felt a lot. I was very emotional. I am very emotional. I'm a heart-centered person, and I feel the intelligence in my body. And I my drive was wanting to make other people happy and wanting other people to feel good. And I've learned along my journey. I mean, look at Robin Williams, right? And so successful and so talented and so compassionate and vulnerable and everything and what happened. And so many people who do that. And I found through my journey, they say the best comedians and the best stand-up people are the ones who've experienced such trauma and pain and sorrow, and they just want other people to feel good and make other people's happy because they know what it feels like to not be happy. And I think being an empath, which I didn't know that language then of being an empath and a HSP, a highly sensitive person, 16 to 20% of the population have HSP, and I'm one of them. Like I was sensitive, and I knew it was a gift. It wasn't talked about. Emotional intelligence. It was physical health. Mental health wasn't really spoken about, but I had an intuitive knowing. And so my journey was wanting to make other people feel good and make them happy. And I found through the arts, I could do that. And if it was making them happy and joking around and being silly, and I always was like class clown, being silly to everyone and not caring, or marching to the beat of my own drum. And if it's entertaining someone and maybe it's an opportunity for someone to like maybe judge me, but then they're still getting a kick out of it, I would feed off in like that as well, because either when you're judging me, you're judging yourself, and that's a lesson to be learned, or you could be like Shakespeare said, I won't botch his quote, but you're tragic and have the tragedy, but still like be comical in a way, so I found I could do that through acting.
Well, that's just something that I, in a way, envy about actors, is being able to really put yourself out there, and because you're in a way becoming someone else, but you still have elements of your emotions. Like you have to put yourself in a highly emotional state sometimes. You watch movies, shows, they swap between the two, but you see these emotional acts and responses, and some of them are positive. Like I love comedies. I love comedies that make me laugh so hard that I can barely breathe. That
like which one? Do you have a one or two in mind?
Whose Line Is It Anyway? The improv comedy show from back in the late 90s, early 2000s. It was started as a British show, but then was brought over to the United States. Yeah, I remember watching that show with my parents, and like some of my favorite moments from my teenage years were watching that show with them because it was just so funny.
Very cool. Very cool.
Yes.
Nice.
So
yeah,
I think it's great of actors, especially, like you saying that. I feel like more actors should have that type of mindset of, what you're doing can really make a difference, because you might have someone that is in a really bad position mentally, but watching your film and seeing, like, for example, say you in, a positive role might have a positive influence on that person and can really make or break them.
Yeah. A couple of things. One, what you were saying is, so it's kind of, it's all within us. And what does that mean? It's all within us. So it's the craft of it is you find a solitude, silent place, right? To make the character choices. And then everything's like an accessory or an extension of us, where we pick up certain things where literally like that might not be me, but I find what strings my chords, like the chords within, what strums them, what makes me trigger and vibrate, right? So I can be authentic and grounded in reality based on the given circumstances. And I do the core of the work. And then you kind of add the bells and whistles and you build the character depending on what it is. If it's comedy or dramatic, TV, film, knowing the tones of ABC and AMC and the networks, right? Understanding the tones and the vibes of the shows. So that's really important to, address. And then there was another thing I was going to share, and then it lost me along the way, but maybe it'll come back up in a moment.
That happens to me all the time, but I'm sure it will. I'm sure it will.
Yeah.
So once you decide that acting and working in the arts is what you want to do, what was your next step? How did you, to use the phrase, how did you get your foot in the door in the acting world?
Yeah. I mean, this can kind of go in a couple different directions. But in the early days of when I was a teenager, I didn't come from a family in entertainment. So, my friend Francesco Faga, his mom passed away recently, Natalie Trundy, and she was in Planet of the Apes, a debutante. And he's always joking. He's like, not joking, but serious. In 2005, he's like, have them call me when they do your True Hollywood story. He's like, I will tell them all day how you are self-made. And then my friend Ryan Carell, whose dad is, more of an acquaintance, but we were, really good friends. He was my brother on CSI New York, and he's Max Spielberg's best friend, Steven Spielberg's first son. And his dad's Richard Carell, like directing Full House that I grew up watching, and directing like Zack and Cody and like all these Disney shows. And he's like this legendary director living in Hancock Park. And he's like, he's asking me like steps I'm taking. I'm like, wait a minute, your dad's Richard Carell. Your best friend is so-and-so. You grew up in Hollywood. Like, how are you asking me like what am I doing? And that really gave me some foresight and a reflection of, wow. And that's consistency, determination, knowing what you want, going for it, being careful of who you tell your information to, because energy, no matter if it's positive or negative, or if it's high or low or whatever, it's energy, and you're exuding that energy. And it's like, I don't want to say we only have so much energy, because I think we have unlimited energy, and that it's there. It's just if we have access to open up those portals and be connected to that flow, right? Being connected to that flow of the energy. So it's like if you're telling someone, you're so excited, you're telling someone about these things, but they're like dead potatoes on a couch, it's not going to be reciprocal. You're not going to feed off the energy. You're going to be discouraged. You're going to be frustrated because the train track isn't being reciprocal. It's not going both ways. However, if you talk to someone like me or you about podcasting or acting, it's like, oh yeah, and this is what you got to do. And you got to go to IMDb, and you got to like look up the directors and producers. You have to watch these movies. You have to read these books. Susan Batson, read the book called Truth. Like, Stanford Meisner, study the Meisner technique. Like, oh, these are things. And then people are going to be excited, and their energies are going to be fueling, and it's going to be back and forth, and it's going to be awesome. So knowing how to, like, where to put your energy, what train track to put your energy on to protect yourself and your vision of your dreams and your desires, your goals, to make them turn into reality. Because we heard so many stories along the way, like, oh, you're not going to make, that's not going to happen. You can't make that happen. And 80 or 90% of the herd is like, you're not going to do that. No, you're right. You're not going to do that because it's already been done. Angelina is Angelina Jolie because of who she is in her circumstances. Oprah is who she is because of who she is in her circumstances. Like Viola Davis is who she is because who she is in her circumstances. Like, I have mine, you have yours. We all have our circumstances. Drew Barrymore, of like, if we're connected to Hollywood or not, like the grass is greener on the other side. So, like circling back around to like what really got me started was kind of this energy building up within me, and this passion and the drive of wanting to do it, and then turning 18. And once you cross the line of 18, it was like this invisible line of, I can do whatever the F I want to do. You know what I mean? It was like that. Like, it was like that. It's like, okay, mom and dad, you know what I mean? And that's when I started taking action. Before, I was just like simmering inside like in a kettle wanting to implode. But I was kind of just keeping my ears open, researching, watching, observing. But then when I turned 18, like, I just started going for the races. I just like started going fast, which is, I was a model for the auto shows. And so I could pick which shows I wanted to do. And I picked the 10-day shows instead of the 3 to 5 day shows. So I'd be gone. I could be anywhere in America. The client would fly me as a model wherever I wanted: Boston, Chicago, New York, LA, the big shows, the 10-day shows. I would be gone for 10 days doing the shows, make all of my money. Then 20 days, I had 1000% free to go to the Samuel French bookstore, to network, to go out, to meet people, to send out mailing submissions. That's what they used to do back then. I sent out 80 to get meetings. I got like 7 or 8 calls, but it takes one. I got a commercial representation. I was going out nonstop for commercials. Like I was going out for like 3 to 4 commercials a day. It was like full on. Now I would just show up like this. I was doing my hair. I would take like 2 hours to like get my outfit ready, my hair, my makeup, everything. But now it's like, you just like show up like this. But that's kind of how I got started in entertainment.
Well, and you said something that I think is so insightful, and it reminds me of something that I said at a podcasting panel I did a couple of years ago. You had mentioned Angelina Jolie is who she is, or where she's at because of who she is and her circumstances. And you named, other actors and actresses as well. You shouldn't try to be the next Angelina Jolie. Like part of what makes filmmaking so great, and what I've learned is really fascinating about everybody's story, is there's not really a set path to get to the entertainment industry. Like everybody has their own unique story of how they got there. Like you have yours, other guests that I've interviewed have theirs as well. You don't have to follow, like there's not a how-to book that says you have to follow these certain steps. Like there are some similarities, like you have to have a great work ethic and you have to have determination, because you're going to get told no a lot, but eventually you all you have to do is, sometimes it just takes impressing one person, and that person can be the right one that just branches off into so many other opportunities. I've told this story before too. I remember a couple of years ago, I sent out almost 40 emails to get interview requests for this show, and I heard back from 0, but I kept going. And now here I am, 320 something episodes later.
Wow. There you go. It reminds me of Entrepreneur on Fire. John Lee Dumas, I had Kate Erickson, his fiance, who's the engine behind Entrepreneur on Fire. And she said he was doing like, I think like 4 to 6 interviews a day. He was just like doing multiple ones a day, batching them, but having them every day, being consistent. So brava on you. Very cool. Very amazing. It's definitely very important. The craft, the craft of the acting. I mean, that's what you do as an actor. It's not in being professional, being super professional, and the importance of when you're showing up at a studio or with a director and a writer, like they have families, they have people they have to talk to, producers and their team. And so do casting directors. And, shout out to Nancy Nair, Jane Jenkins, Barbara Florentino, Rebecca Mangieri, like all these amazing casting directors, Wendy O'Brien, like they've supported my career. They've brought me in. They're amazing. And, casting directors are like the ones who bring you to the directors and to the producers. And when you do great work, like when I book Cold Case as a guest lead, they gave me a guest lead. I went out, I booked it on my 8th time. So they loved my work, that I wouldn't do pre-reads with Barbara Florentino and Rebecca Mangieri. You do like a pre-read and then they call you back. But because they knew my work and they knew I was solid, they would take me straight to producers. And you're in the room of like 8 to 14 producers with the director and, the people in the room. And they would, because they trusted me, because that's why they do a pre-read, because they have to vet out the people that they bring, to producers. And everyone has a, responsibility, the ability to respond. So it's about like really being consistent, and talent is number one. However, I do know that the people who like know their craft, they know their lines, they know the intention, they get coached, they have representation, and they show up and they're consistent, they're gonna be the ones working too, because if you're super talented but you're late to set, or if you're super talented and you're talking bad about someone, you're not being a team player, like no one wants that toxic energy. When you are doing what we're doing right now, it's like entertaining, it's exciting, you want to create. It's like leave your baggage at the door and be professional. Like everyone has their own stuff, and I feel like during the pandemic it really gave people a lot of insight of like, we all have stuff going on, so like let's be respectful. I just got chills. Let's be respectful of one another and show up and have a good time and make this, because people like you and people who are tuning in, watching and listening are going to be entertained by what we do. And that's why we do what we do. Like it's not the only reason, but that's where it's going to land. And that's where the legacy is going to be, like streaming and on the videos. And it is a major part of what we do. We want people to see what you said earlier about how we show up and we're vulnerable and we have the courage to show up and to give our heart and our all, because a lot of people in life, they admire and they wish they could do that, be raw, be real, and get past their own stuff, to get so open and so vulnerable, to share, to connect with people through music, through sound, through visuals, through movies, through the language of TV. Like This Is Us. Oh my God, Aaron Kaplan and DJ Nash, like the show This Is Us, the writing is so mature and eloquent and simplistic, and so simplistic, but real and raw. And I'm like, yo, I identify with that show completely. Like, I love it so much. I want to be on the show. But it's so awesome of what they're talking about, like real stuff that people can really relate to, diversity, and, how the friendships, how they come together in a communicative way to show the importance of communication. Because when you hold things and you lie, it shows the messages of, like, how it shows the messages of healthy communication. I feel that show really embraces that element.
No, and I couldn't agree more. And I that's something that, and I haven't watched the entire show yet, but I've seen enough to kind of grasp what it's about and everything. And I thought the exact same thing. Like, I was blown away by how almost real that it felt, like
Yes.
dealing, like as you said, dealing with real life issues. It was almost like watching real life unfold on my TV. But yeah, that's kind of going back to what we were saying before, is that, the thing about actors is that their performances can really, in a way, change and help people. If someone's going through a problem and they see, maybe something that they relate to on screen, it can help them get through, some type of emotional state that they might be in. Because I've been that way too. I've gone through bouts of, not feeling confident or not feeling as great about, my home situation or professional situation and things like that. And movies and shows have helped me get through that. And I think that's why I've been so attached to the medium since, I could say, probably since I was a teenager.
Yeah. Your soul, your energy, your vibe, the connectivity of humanity, there's so many beautiful stories. Thank you for sharing that. Like two quick stories, like Wayne, right, on Amazon. Wayne, it's like I had to write the creator on Instagram, and he followed me and I follow him. But Wayne was so exciting because it was like this teenage romantic rebel kind of love. But it reminded me the essence of being 15 again. It gave me that raw, edgy perspective in a way of, like, being rebels and just like going for it. Kind of broke me out of trying to be too polished and too perfect and being in this like way. It's like, what have I done with my vision? And this is who I used to be, more rambunctious like that. So it kind of gives you an exciting feeling to be that again. Also, I went out for Emily Dickinson for Apple TV. Like, I went out for the project and I didn't even know it was on the air. Thank goodness. And I went out for the movie or the TV show, but then I binged it and I watched it, and I'm a poet first and foremost. And so when I'm binging and I'm watching it, I just took 2 days and I watched season 1 and 2, and it was so comical and the writing was genius. And I started following all the writers on Twitter, and it's like so cool to be like interacting with them and like seeing like their perspective. And like, if I didn't get the audition, I would have found the show because it's just such a brilliant show. But it's like, I'm a poet. So what did I do? I started writing poetry. I started speaking in such a way, and people around me were like kind of laughing, like they're like, "Oh, poet, blah, 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 blah." But it was so inspiring, and it's like, I just want to watch this every day. So I remember to be poetic every day, So yeah, it has a major impact. So I'm so happy to be a part of it. It's such a gift and a blessing. But it's also a choice that I made. And it's something that found me. I think it finds you. Like, if it's meant to be, it finds you.
And once you find it, or it finds you, there's nothing else you want to do. Like, when you get that little taste of it, because I worked on my first actual set. It was for a commercial that we filmed locally here in town back in 2014. And that was my like little taste of what it was like to film something, as far as being on a set and everything.
Cool.
And like, I had that feeling like I want to keep doing this. And then a couple of years later, I got to work on my friend Steve's short film Survey in the summer of 2017. And that kind of reignited that spark. And then a year later, I wrote and directed my first short.
Congratulations. That's so
thanks.
cool. That's so cool.
Yeah. So it's really the point I was trying to make is once you do it, you know if it's right for you, because it's not an easy job. Even doing a short is not easy because there's so much prep work from directing it to writing it, planning it as far as producing it, planning logistics and everything from an actor's perspective, really diving into the role, learning the lines, things like that, then working with your fellow cast members that you share scenes with. It's not an easy job. But
hair, makeup, lighting,
yep.
crew, location, editor, post-production, sound, being mic'd properly.
Yep. Absolutely. But once you discover it, if it's what you want to do, it doesn't matter how long the hours are. Whenever you're done, you're like, I could do that again.
Yeah. Yeah. And I would, and I will. Yeah. Yeah.
Absolutely. I did want to ask you, transitioning into some specific moments of your career. You've worked alongside some actors such as Al Pacino, Robert De Niro, Morgan Freeman, Nicolas Cage. What are some of the biggest lessons that you've learned throughout your career? And did you learn anything by you working with these fellow actors? So what have been some of the biggest lessons that you've learned throughout your career?
Yeah, great question. There are so many. How many days do we have here? So many. There is this one moment. It's really important as an actor to be, know your lines, you're talking and you're being filmed, whether you're in person or you're doing a self-tape and sending it in, which we're all doing right now. Self-taping and editing and sending it in. But a lot of times when actors are, saying their lines, when they stop, it's like they stop breathing, they get tight. You're thinking about your next line. You're maybe looking down at the sides, but we're not listening. So the other side is listening. And when you're listening, there's life going on. And that's what you need, the life going on in the eyes, right? When we're acting in a scene, going back and forth. Right now you're listening. And so I remember it was a subtle thing that no one else knew. Like there's a cinematographer, the director, everyone on set, everyone around us. And I was with Al Pacino and we were in this scene together and it wasn't in the script, but he goes, "What?" Like that. And then like to see if I was listening. And then when he said, "What?" like for me to respond, I was like, boom. And I like went into it, and it was that little bone that he gave me. I don't know if he purposely did it or he probably, I don't know if he knows about this or doesn't know about this. I'm not sure, but I feel like in that moment was a moment like he threw me some kind of bone, which was like to see if I was like in with the big leagues, like kind of like in that moment of acting, right? Really acting. And I was, and I was really proud of myself. And I felt it, because I was really in it. So I felt it and I was like there with the energy of it. And then later on, I've always been into DJing and I grew up in the Detroit electronic music scene underground with the best DJs in the world before like what DJs were a thing in Western civilization. And I would listen to all this amazing music and I wanted to like see what kind of DJ I was because there's so many different kinds of DJs. And I was already studying with the best comedy drama in LA, New York. And I've studied with the best and you're reading thousands of scripts I've read, which is awesome, through agents and going out for pilots and materials. But I wanted to become a better listener, not only for myself, not only in my personal relationships, for my work. I wanted to become a better listener. And I wanted to give my mind a break from memorizing, 24 pages or 12 pages or meeting up with an acting partner to like do, these workshop scenes. Because I've done that. And I just, it was like, my breaks needed like to be changed. I needed to rotate and put it on the back burner and do something that was a little more exciting for me. That wasn't feeling energetically drained or like weighed down. So I thought because I love commitment. I love being committed. I love always learning. So there was a DJ music program and I studied for 1 year and every 6 weeks we had finals and semesters, but I would go in and I would listen and through music, I was listening and through that training it was making me a better actor, a better person and better for my craft of acting, like that side of it. So that was really important with, Al Pacino moment, and then the listening part, how they go hand in hand. No, Nicolas Cage was super awesome. It was a close set. I kind of felt like Sharon Stone in that Basic Instinct movie where she's like wearing no panties and it's like such a hot, like big deal. Cause I remember being in the trailer with my hair and makeup person, and, I had to make the choice as an actor if I was going to be wearing panties or not, because he says, you're wearing no panties in the scene, and he pulls up my dress. And if I had panties on, it wouldn't really worked, right? But I didn't talk to the director about that. Werner Herzog, ranked top 35 filmmaker in the world. He's amazing, from Germany, brilliant. Like, we didn't talk about that, but that was again one of those subtle moments actor makes for their craft and their choice. So, and it's subtle, but it's important for the material and for the circumstance of what was happening in that particular scene. So I didn't, I made the choice not to. And then it was, like I said, it was a close set, and working with him, it was just awesome just to be in his presence and watching his energy, and just very neurotic, not pacing around, but kind of like moving around, just seeing him in his element of like moving around, like with his, with his lips kind of going like this, going over his dialogue with what he's seeing in the scene, and just being able to witness his genius was really exciting for me. And, we had this like really special moment, and he referenced like some movie because of like how we were. It reminded him of some Heart movie that he was in back in the day, that I still have yet to see. I need to see that movie. But he was saying something about like karma or whatever. So it was kind of like a fun actor moment. And I felt really proud, because I feel like I really like served it to him. You know what I mean? I feel like he serves it to people a lot of times, but I feel like I like really, really served it to him. And all of these years, I heard so many great things about, the role in the film. So I was really proud to, be invited to be a part of those moments. And I met some really cool people on set who become, my friends, and, so that's really special for me too.
You gave out to me two great pieces of advice.
Oh.
One is being a good listener, because that's what I tell people if they want to start a podcast. I tell them if they do an interview-based show, always be a good listener. Like, you can have your notes and everything, but always listen to, and that leads into the other piece of advice that I'm not sure if you intentionally meant it as such, but I took it in that way. The little nuances, you were talking about the little nuances as an actor, and choices that you make, and little details that people might notice. That's what I also tell people when it comes to podcasting, is like, you pick up on those little nuances of how the conversation goes. Cause I'll use the conversation that we're having right now. It's, I had an idea of what we were going to talk about, but it's gone in a different direction, but a good one. But sometimes those make for the best conversations. And you're talking about with, Al Pacino, making sure that, you were listening. That's good. That's good as well. So you never really quite know how things are going to work out, no matter how scripted they might be.
Yes.
And that's what's wonderful about the industry.
Yeah. And then also what you said is like what you said about the script. It's our job as actors, like, to see what's on the script, but bring it to life. Like, they are cheering for us. The casting directors, the writers, they're not against us. They're actually, there's no resistance, right? It's our own insecurities and resistance, but they're cheering for us. They want us to make these choices to show them something that, whoa, like, you just like did something like no one else did. I was on a podcast yesterday with Keith Coogan, and he was in Don't Tell Mom the Babysitter's Dead and Adventures in Babysitting. And we were talking about like the subtlety of the complexity, but the subtlety of Christina Applegate's role that she had in Don't Tell Mom the Babysitter's Dead. And then he told the amazing story of how he went out for one role, but he thought he was more Kenneth, like, the rocker role that he booked in Don't Tell Mom. And he told the story about the casting director, the director, and everyone was like, okay, cool, go do your thing. He went out, he put on a jacket, he put on a wig, when they're like, okay, come on, it's your turn to go in, he then like turned into the character. He kicked the door open. He's like, and he said whatever he said. And he was the character from the moment he went in till he left. And then they clearly booked him. But it's that determination. So the very first role that I ever booked as a lead, Mark Jones, who directed the famous Leprechaun movies with Jennifer Aniston, it's Jennifer Anistonopoulos. She's Greek, right? He cast her in her first lead movie, and she's Greek, and I'm Greek. So there's that. I'm like aware of that synergy of like, he cast her in her first movie. I'm Greek. He cast me in my first movie. It's like signs, those subtle energies and signs to be aware of that people can't really tell you, but those are like the magic moments of life that you need to be attuned to and look at it as a gift and then take a little nugget and make a mountain of gold. I mean, it's the power of the choice of what we hear and what we see and what we choose not to hear and see, So, but when I walked into that room, when I did the lead as Robin in Triloquist, my first lead, when I walked in, I was the character. And the way that I was against the wall with the window and the choices I made of like looking and seeing and, whatever I was looking at, I was like up on that wall. Like I was not leaving that wall, and they were just like watching me on the wall. You know what I mean? And it's like, I just like took over and I just went for it. It's like Kenny yesterday, who played Kenneth on Don't Tell Mom the Babysitter said, he said he blacked out. It's exactly what I did. It was kind of like a blackout. You kind of like black out and you just like immerse yourself for that 5 to 10 minutes you have in the room. And then you leave and you just dismantle it and let it go and go have like an ice cream or something and a little treat to treat yourself after, putting your heart on the table.
That's something I've always been curious about too, is that, I've heard stories of when actors, they walk onto a set, they're no longer themselves. They are that character. So I'm always curious as to what that does for you mentally. Like, is it literally like a switch that you flip and like that,
Yep.
you're
Yep.
that person. And then when you walk off set, you just switch off and you're back to normal. Like, how do you prepare yourself for that?
That's a great question. It's just kind of like the switch is off, the switch is on. It's off, it's on, right? It's like data and boundaries, right? So it's kind of having a canvas. And me particular, like everyone works different, right? Some people like a chaotic circumstance. Some people need Zen, peace and quiet. Some people show up listening with headphones and they're zoned into their music to not hear other vibrations and other maybe people talking in the audition room, to kind of stay in your lane, in your zone with your choices, because you prepare with a coach. And depending if you had 24 hours with the role or if you had 4 or 5 days or a week with the role, I need to like soak everything up like a sponge. So I'll read it. I'll read it with someone. I'll look at the director, the producer, I'll look at all the analytics of like the data, the information, the tone of the show. So I'll do all the research, right? I'll do all the research aspects. So it's like analytical, knowing like the director, the vibe, the tone of the show. Then I'll get into the emotional state of the character. And then once I've done the work of the choices and literally all the work I kind of just mentioned, in addition to making sure I'm eating properly, making sure I'm well rested, making sure I like cancel all my appointments or maybe not talk to so-and-so just to keep very zoned in and focused. Once I've done all the preparation, and the preparation is until you turn the camera on, and the preparation is until you get into the door. Once you've done all the preparation, you have to dismantle and let it all go. You have to let it all go, and you can't think about anything. So you have to do all the thinking in advance and all the preparation in advance, because when you turn the flip on or someone says action and go, I need to be so heart-centered, open, and trust myself, my body, and my vulnerability and the choices that naturally come in the moment, because you don't know what's going to happen, like this podcast and like that moment with Appuccino. Like you can't prepare for that. I could only prepare everything I could until that moment. But then when you're actually in the moment, you need to really, as an actor, be in the moment. And we're not in the moment if we're thinking about the preparation we did. So I think that kind of gives me the presence and the joy and the essence of play and being in that. And it's a craft, it's a talent, and it's a skill to kind of drop in and get to that place. but also sometimes you have an instinct and I can just go there. Sometimes you have to work to get there. It's never the same. But once you practice and you know your craft and your discipline, you can just drop in. You can just boom, drop in because you know what you need to do. And you can't explain it to people. Explaining it is going to take more energy and build resistance and frustrate me. That's what it frustrates me, having to explain it. I just need to be able to like dismantle everything and have a space. So it's like me, my artist, and then a partner. Like it's never like me and then a partner. It's like Susan Batson, who's Nicole Kidman's personal acting coach for over 2 decades now, Juliette Binoche, Oprah, Madonna. I studied with her in New York for a year. She has an amazing book called Truth, just the blue cover called Truth. Great for any actor to read. But, you know, she's in class and she's like, listen, Jack Nicholson, he has his family house and then he has the house next door. He has his house and he has a house next door for him to like be neurotic and be by himself and do what he needs to do. You know what I mean? He's like, if you want to see my drama, pay me 20 million. You want to see my comedy, pay me 20 million. You know what I'm saying? Like, you want to see this and be entertained, you pay me 20 million. But he has his house with his family and then he has his house over here. And that's how I don't have a family yet of my own, God willing, if it's meant to be in the near future. But I was celibate for 7 years and I, you know, traveled the world and saw it untainted by anyone's thoughts and just in pure ecstasy of life and what is offered here for us as individuals, you know, before birthing and giving life to another, just really filling my own cup. And by doing that, having the experiences and embracing those moments. And while doing that, I was able to really develop a relationship with myself internally and build the strength to have enough respect for myself and my artist and for my art to have it be me. And then it's me. And then here's my artist. And my artist has needs too. And listening to my artist's needs.
Well, I think it's very important you mentioned you had that period to kind of get to know yourself and find yourself. I think everyone should do that, you know, and you have to find your own way to do it because you have to understand who you are before you can be successful. It's like that old saying that, you know, I remember my mother telling me a long time ago, you have to find a way to make yourself happy before you can make other people happy. So I think that's amazing. And that's actually really inspiring. And I remember hearing more stories as, you know, when COVID first started and things were shut down and everyone was having those moments of inner reflection. And then as, you know, the shutdown continued months upon months, I remember, you know, I did a podcast with a producer who's also a licensed therapist named Rebecca Day. And she was talking about the importance of mental health and, you know, finding yourself and really finding, you know, what's going to make you happy as both a professional and a personal matter. So like you telling your story and thank you for sharing that. Cause that's really deep stuff that, you know, not a lot of people really think about, but it's very important.
It's so important. And I love your mother. What great solid words for her to say that to you and to have that belief at such a young age, you know, to truly love yourself and really love yourself so you can really fully love others. I love that. It's so important and it's so true. And that's how we become the ripple effect. It starts with self and gifting my best self to you, to the viewer, to the listener tuning in. I'm able to do that because of the time I've taken for myself. And, you know, we go up and we go down and in between, and it's the journey of life, you know, and but I take the good, the bad, the ugly, and I put it onto a canvas and I'll make pop culture art, or I'll make a, you know, like a story collage of like mystery and dark, you know, and then I can do a bright, colorful rainbow one. It's like, and that's how life is. Like 1 minute you can be crying and sobbing, and then the next minute be joyful and laughing. And it's like an ocean wave of emotions. They come and they go, they come and they go, and they're going to come and go, and invite them in. But it's how we respond to it. Right. So, you know, it's going to come, but I have a choice to make a new choice this time of how I'm going to respond to it. And it's like, oh, you know, you can just show up to the mat. I mean, especially with the auditions that you get, you know, and the opportunities that come. It's so exciting that I was even offered to audition. You know how many people can't even get auditions because they don't have the right representation. And then you get representation, and then it's like you get invited to audition, because like even when you have representation, they still have to pitch you to, it's all these hoops. So then they have to pitch you to audition, and then the casting directors request you, and then you audition. And it's like, there's, everyone plays their part, and my job as an actor is to get the job. My team, their job is to get me the audition. And then, all I can do is the work and the craft and show up and be consistent and have a positive mental attitude and make sure I'm taking the time out so I can do that for my work. And if I am down and out, put that into my work, but don't put it in my personal, like, or on set. Put it into the work. Let it. So when I'm doing voiceovers, like you're listening to voiceovers, people are talking about things, but when I'm saying something that makes me really excited, maybe I'm not talking about the brand. Maybe I'm thinking about poetry or art or like a trip I went on. So it's the energy, through the words and the sound and the vibration that people attune and pick up on. Right. So it depends, how you get there. As long as you get there, it doesn't matter. You know what I mean? As long as you get there, but it's our job to find that center.
When you have to find what works for you as well, like what might work for you may not work for me, and vice versa. It's all about, kind of finding, and this may be a bad analogy, but it's all almost like finding your own voice and finding your own style of what works for you. It kind of goes back to what we were talking about a little while ago, of not trying to be the next Oprah or the next Angelina Jolie. It's being the first you.
Yeah.
And finding, what makes you work and what works for you, as far as what gets you in that mindset, whether it's to, perform a really dramatic scene or do a podcast interview or direct a film or whatever the case may be. I think that's something you can take through life in general, is to find what really makes you tick and then harness that and carry that with you throughout the rest of your life.
Love that. Definitely. And yeah, when I get called for voiceovers, I'll get called a lot of times for Scarlett Johansson type, Emma Stone type, because I have that like Demi Moore, like raspy, like that voice, like rusky voice, that her, a lot of times like her, that movie with Scarlett Johansson. Or I'll get like an Alicia Silverstone type, but it's like the type, it's like the journey of, but it's not exactly them, it's me, but in voiceover, but it's like the same vibe, so it's the same essence, right? Same thing with the on-camera stuff. Yeah, so definitely important, for all, not only actors, but all artists and humans, to be authentic to who they are. And if we're like, and I've been there, I'm like, well, who am I? Like, I thought I knew. And then you're like, wait, I thought I knew. I know who I am. If you know who you are, great. Or like, I thought I knew who I was. And then I learned more. And then I was like, and then I like lost my mojo along the way. And I made a choice to lose my mojo. And then I was on a labyrinth self-discovery to get my mojo back. And I didn't know if I was ever going to get it back. And I did get it back. And once I got it back, I was like, yo, I am never letting go of this again. Like, I chose, because if you love something, you let it go, right? And if it comes back, it's meant to be. I let it go. I had to let go of the egoic mind. I had to let go of everything that I already knew. I had to let go of how I thought it was supposed to be, to lose myself, to completely find myself again. And my friend, gave me that quote a long time ago. So I know it's some kind of quote is written at that last part, maybe an unknown person, but you lose yourself to find yourself. But it was a long journey to find myself again, and I did find myself again. And now that I have it, like, I'm going to keep it, like I did take some time from, I've been doing voiceovers, but I did take some time off on-screen acting for a while. I was traveling, and it was the time of what you were saying in 2017, when you did your project, with your friend, Jonah Hill and, Brie Larson, and so many great actors were coming to the union for conversations. And they were saying, with technology now, they were empowering, hey, just don't be the actor, like waiting for the opportunities, go out and shoot your own content, like Brad Pitt and, Matt Damon did with their beautiful project when they first came out of the gates. What's the movie called? I love that film. It's like with Robin Williams. He's in it, actually.
I know which one you're talking about. The name escapes me at the moment.
Oh, it's such a brilliant movie. The viewer and the listener definitely can put it in the comments. They're all going to know what it is. It's a great film, and they created, they made it. And that was before everyone started doing it and before technology was what it was. So people, would come to the union, and that's when I started. I did 2 short films through SAG, and I did 2 web series through SAG. I gave 5 non-union actors an opportunity to be in the union, which was really empowering, cool as a producer. And so I went on a journey to make my own content, and I was kind of like feeling stuck that I wasn't booking the roles I wanted to book. So I just made my own shows and I made my own content. And I kind of like took a break from, in retrospect of learning, about consistency, you can't wish or regret, but, because we got to just keep learning and moving on. But a lesson learned is I would have kept my team, any team, and kept auditioning for HBO, for ABC, for the projects, instead of dismantling and not doing and just kind of going independent on my own. When I was creating projects, I would have been more consistent, because there's something called ageism. In Hollywood. I was on a panel yesterday with 4 amazing women, top tier in the agency, all the best agencies. And they brought up this word ageism, is when you like start and you're like, they want to get involved with like young aspiring actors. But then like, if you kind of like stop or go away and then come back and try to do it again, it's like difficult, because the industry is like, where did you go? What happened? And everyone, especially during the pandemic, it's like, things happen with people, like, they go through breakups or someone passed away or you had to go like take care of something. So it is possible. There are 2 times where I was like, started from nothing, built this energy, and then like made it, and then left and traveled the world, and then like came back and like the carrot was dangling again. And I was like right there with like 50 Cent, Nicolas Cage, and like working, and success is measured. And I'm like, okay. And then I maybe had a bad breakup, and I went and sailed in the south of France, and I left, and I like started doing my own projects and doing music and doing so many things. And then kind of coming back and kind of like for my 3rd time, like dabbling in so many things, having success, but like knowing that I'm not going to run this time. Like I've done so much internal work where it's like, I know what it's like. And I went off and did my own thing because I was like inspired by the industry to do that. But I wouldn't have dismantled the on-screen representation and going out for the network, the machine that could actually feed and help those independent projects. But I was so focused on just those independent projects that I like dismantled that other thing. So that's like a really important big lesson. When you get a team, like be consistent, don't quit, like just keep. And I didn't quit because I kept doing projects, but don't stop going out for like the Hollywood projects with the networks that can actually help you and get you to a level with your independent projects. With that being said, lastly, during the lockdown, I was able to get a whole new team, and I'm totally going out for, I just went out for an AMC straight to series project, a new project straight to series, another amazing project. So I'm feel so good to be like back in the game and with like casting directors and the people like who know my work, but in March of 2020, when the pandemic hit, the only thing I know is create. I put my head down. I removed any hoops, and I created a lockdown improv web series called Couples Therapy. And earlier in the conversation, I talked about like the energetic train tracks and applying them on the tracks that it's going to help you. I took the work we did, season 1, 2, and 3 that are already shot. Season 1 and 2 are on the Sophisticated Psychos YouTube channel that, people can watch. I took it and I put it in the film festival circuit, and we have over 25 official selections. We won 16 awards. We won 16 so far. We're semifinalists for like 6. I won best director and best actor for 3 of them so far. So, and it's in the circuit, and they're still, pending. So we became an international web series during the pandemic. So that was really cool, that to be able to, create that and make that happen and be creative. Yeah. But then I saw the importance of, having my team and having them put me out for, the projects.
Absolutely. And especially to put it out there during a time when people are wanting and needing content because everyone's stuck at home. So
Yeah.
I think the timing could not have been better, but that's fantastic. And congratulations on all the awards and accolades.
Thank you. I grew up running cross country. So I was accustomed to being in the paper twice a week, to getting awards and having medals on my varsity jacket. And so when I started getting these certificates, it's been a while, right? It's been a while since I've been running cross country. So it's been a while that I've been receiving these kinds of awards. And I was like, this is home for me. It's meant to be. I'm meant to get awards. I'm meant to get certificates. And I want to be involved with more projects where they have awards and certificates because it feels good. And I want to celebrate myself and celebrate the teams and the people I create with. And it's fun and it feels really good. So whatever feels good for you is the actionable steps to be taking.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. But as we start to wrap up here, I did want to ask you, normally I like to end the conversations with what's one piece of advice that you could give to an aspiring filmmaker. But with you, I'd like to ask you something a little more specific.
Okay.
What's one piece of advice that you could give an actor who's preparing for an audition?
One piece of advice for an actor who's preparing for an audition. Well, a few moments ago when I kind of gave my process, those are some tips, I think. But I think it's really important to, when you get the materials, the sides, to read it out loud with someone. Because when you literally, instead of studying all by yourself, the sides, and I write them out. So I definitely would write them out and forget about the punctuations. We learned that in Meisner. Get someone, even if you're around no one, get someone on the phone that you can read it back and forth. Because when you're listening and reading it back and forth, you get it out of your tongue, you get it out of your mouth, like you get the words out. So then it's not like just in your head, because we go to, speak and it's different. So to get it out, for me particularly, I'll start getting some anxiety. So if I get it out, then I'm like, oh, okay, it might be 6 or 8 pages or something. But then when I get it out, I'm like, okay, and now I broke it down. These 3 scenes, one's like a monologue, 2, 3, there's a lot of back and forth, so then you take the marble of mold, and then you're able to break it down and section it to know where you scene 2, I'm gonna have to do some more work here, right? Scene 1 may take me a little longer. I got scene 2 and 3 like on lock. So you kind of see where the work is and where you have to spend most of your energy and time to like offload, any pressure. So anything you can do to offload any pressures. But that's I think some really solid advice. What do you think about it?
No, I love it. No, that's great. Fantastic. Yeah. And last thing, do you have any website or social media you'd like to plug so the listeners can follow you?
Sure. I'm just my last name, Chonacas.com. So everyone can find everything there.
Awesome.
On all social media. Yeah. But aloversfairytale.com if you want to check out the poetry book and put in your email, because I have the automation set up where it sends you a curated playlist of my poetry book. The music videos, the spoken word music videos that I self-produced over the last decade.
Fantastic. Well, Katie, thank you so much for this wonderful and enlightening chat. This was great.
Oh, you're so sweet, Derek. Thank you so much. It's such an honor to be here.
Thanks again to Katie Chonacas for that awesome conversation. Be sure to check out her podcast, She's All Over the Place, and follow her on Instagram at Chonacas to find out what she'll be up to next. And for next week's show, I'll be chatting with casting editor Luke Cheney, who has worked on several reality shows, including one that I've grown to enjoy very much, The Voice. So he'll be on the show next week to talk about his role in the entertainment industry. He also hosts a podcast as well called the Movie Time Capsule Podcast. We'll be talking more about that on next week's show. Be sure to come back for that really fun episode. And before we close out the show officially, I'm not quite ready to announce the full details yet, but I will say that in the next month or so, and especially mid-November, there's going to be, I don't want to call it a bombshell because I don't want to hype myself up too much for it, but there's going to be a big announcement regarding the show and my future with podcasting. And I'm going to leave it at that for right now. Just be sure to check out social media every now and then leading up to it. In the next couple of weeks, once I get everything finalized, I'll make a full announcement of what I'm going to be doing. But just know that there's something big in the works, and I'm curious to see what you all will think of it. Hopefully it's all good things, but we'll see. I'm excited to unveil it, though. I think everyone's honestly going to enjoy it. But until then, you can check out past episodes of the show on Apple Podcast, Spotify, Amazon Music, wherever you get your podcasts. Just search for The Derek Diamond Experience. And if you could, please leave a review. The more reviews I get, the more visible I become to the podcasting public. If you want to watch the video versions on YouTube, just search for The Derek Diamond Experience. If you want to follow me on social media, I'm on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at DDiamond Podcast. And of course, thank you to the Unicorn Wranglers for providing the theme music for the podcast. You can check out all their music on Apple Music, Google Play, and Spotify. That's going to do it for this week's show, so enjoy the rest of your week. Have a safe and fun weekend. Thank you for tuning in to another awesome episode of the Derek Diamond Experience. I'm your host, Derek Diamond, and we'll see you guys back here next Thursday.